Trapped by the belief that I'm not good enough, bound by the limitations and the lies that consumed my world, this was me. It wasn't until I took the biggest leap in my life to know and trust the power within. And it was at that moment I made a choice. My past will not define me anymore. Hello, I am Teri, and I know I am not alone in this. Over the years, I have found that the number one mistake that we make is that we get in the way of our own success story. Yes, I said it. On this show, together we'll tackle limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, getting stuck, fear, doubt, overwhelm, and the imposter syndrome. Join us on this journey designed to transport you beyond your limitations to a world where anything is possible. This is Talking with Teri. Hello, and welcome back to Talking with Teri, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And I'm so excited to have Monica Shah here with us today. She's a 7-figure business coach with an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management. She believes every woman should have a bank account with her name on it and know how to fill it with money she needs to live with the life that she loves. And I absolutely love this because this is so powerful. So, Monica, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here, Terry. Thank you for
I am
inviting me.
too, to learn about you. So I love highlighting the overcomer story. I truly believe that, I think sometimes it's easy for us to look out at people that we perceive as successful and say, wow, they're super successful. They must have just went to bed and put some amazing eye cream on, and then they woke up amazingly successful.
Yeah,
And that's
totally.
not
I
been the
wish.
case. So I love hearing, I know, right? I want to get my hands on the eye cream. But tell us a little bit about your journey and what's been kind of the biggest challenge you've had to overcome in your journey?
Sure. So honestly, getting into business for me was super. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I had gotten my MBA from Kellogg and went and worked at L'Oreal Paris. And so I really thought I didn't fit into sort of the corporate world, and I had this, itch that I needed to scratch, that I wanted to sort of give back to the world in some way. So I left L'Oreal, and I thought I was hot shit. I did. I thought, oh my gosh, I've got the MBA. I've worked at L'Oreal. I know how to do marketing. This shouldn't be that big of a deal. And then it was. It was like jumping into a pool that you think is going to be warm, and then it was like ice cold. And within
That's
12
such
months,
a great metaphor, by the way.
yeah, totally. Like I thought, oh, like I can sell for them. I had launched multiple brands, there's no problem in selling for me. But within 12 months of jumping into business, I was $25,000 in debt. And I didn't know, the debt wasn't for like great shoes and like, ping pong tables. That,
Right.
would have been nice. It wasn't like, internet era,
Right.
stuff.
Right.
It was, for like basic business things and to support myself while I was growing my business. And and it wasn't even the debt that bothered me. It was the fact that I wasn't generating enough revenue to pay it off. And it was just this like mountain that was growing, and I didn't know what to do about it. I was single. I lived in New York City at the time. I live in Brooklyn now, and which is the background you see.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
And what I just was like, I got to figure this out. So I started selling things on eBay and cat sitting and dog walking and doing focus groups and like all kinds of stuff to just try to generate money while I was like growing my business. And like any good New Yorker would, right? Every New Yorker you meet has
Yeah.
at least 5 jobs. And so
Yeah.
one of the things I did is I rented my apartment out on Airbnb. And there was a particular week where I had rented my apartment out 3 days at one person's house, 3 days at another person's house, a day at somebody else's house, and sleeping on their couches. And I finally was getting ready to go home. And I got in the subway. And for those of you that are from the New York area, I got off at the BDFQ stop on 63rd Street. Now, this was a brand new subway stop, and it was like subterranean. The subway's really, really in the ground. So I start walking up the subway stairs. I've got 2 bags on one arm, 2 bags on another arm, a bag across my chest, and a roller bag that I'm carrying with me. and I start like trudging up the stairs, and I get to the top of the stairs. And I had picked this subway stop because there was an escalator on the left, and I looked over and the escalator was closed off. They had that orange tape. It was not working.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, no big deal. There's an elevator on the right. I look over, the elevator's not working.
Oh
And I look
no.
in front of me, and there are four more flights of stairs to get to street level.
Ugh.
And at that moment, I just got really tired. And I put my bags down on the subway floor and then just took a moment. And then I did the unthinkable. I sat down on a New York subway floor. You know, you've hit rock bottom, right? When you're sitting on a New York
Yes, I
subway
mean,
floor.
you can't go much further, like.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. People are like rushing by me and they're like looking straight at me, but trying to look away. And I'm like in this disheveled mess with these bags all around me, and and tears are rolling down my face.
Mhm.
And I don't know what to do. And I just really got clear in that moment that if I didn't figure out how I was going to generate revenue, real revenue in my business, that I was going to go back and get a job. You know, I was
Yeah.
working 80 plus hours a week for
Yeah.
myself so that I didn't have to work 40 hours for somebody else.
And
And
hardly
yet,
making things connect, right?
yeah, and I just couldn't connect the dots, right? It was, I couldn't figure out how to consistently and sustainably generate new clients, new revenue for my business. And so at that point, you know, I didn't want to get a job. I didn't want to go back to being corporate because, you know, I don't like being told what to do. And I think if most entrepreneurs probably share that
Yes.
with me. So I gathered my stuff, and I committed that I would give it a year. And I hired business coaches and mentors and marketing experts, and to try to figure out what the heck to do. And what I realized is that, first of all, there's not a lot out there on how do you consistently and sustainably make money in your business. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
of tactics and there's a lot of strategies. There's a lot of things being thrown at you, but there's nothing that really shows you like, if you're at this place in your business, this is what you need to do. If you're at this place in your business, this is what you need
Yeah.
to do. This is the model. These are the steps through it. And what I realized is that I was working twice as hard as I needed to be and making half as much money as I could be.
No,
And it
I
was it
I
was
will just
exhausting.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to pause for a second because I just think, wow, I can't tell you how many people can resonate with this. And this is the reality. And I think sometimes we have put like entrepreneurship on like this like really pretty pedestal
Right.
and be like, oh, because I can set my own hours and I can do what I want and I can, and it's all great. However, you're absolutely right. I think sometimes we have all good intentions, but it's like, oh gosh, how am I going to make a living at this? And so often I see exactly what you said is that we leave a 40-hour work week with a salary and paid time off and vacation and bonuses
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And we go and say, we're going to work for ourselves. And then what we find out is like we're working 80 hours, we're making half the amount. We have 400,000, bits of more responsibilities that are coming at us. We have multiple hats going everywhere. And I think that it takes a toll on a person. And you're absolutely right. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen entrepreneurs, they can't make their business go. So then they go and find another side hustle and another side hustle, another side hustle. And then this is just so on my top of brain because this just happened on Tuesday. I was at an event and this lady stands up and goes to introduce herself.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I was so confused because she's like,
Yeah.
well, I do this and I do
Yeah.
this and I do
Yeah.
this. And if you need this, I can do this too. And by the way, if you're really in need, I can do this too. And I'm like, holy buckets, guess what? That's a red flag for the consumer, for me to be like, get away. She's not successful. She
Yeah.
doesn't know what she's doing. How could she help me? Right. And so I just think that we do a disservice when we are trying to throw all the things at once. And I know we're going into survival mode because we're in scarcity mindset and we're in like, just got to get this done. So I'm curious how you went from on the subway floor, okay,
Yeah.
to engaging in that year. So that 1 year, it sounds like it was a whirlwind for sure. But what were some of the like gleaming like nuggets that you took from that experience?
Yeah, totally. So it's interesting because what I learned really was that I was focusing on all the wrong things, and most entrepreneurs are. And I actually learned that there's really five key steps to making money. The first is that you have to shift your relationship with money. Like most women entrepreneurs that I know, I just started working with a brand new one on Monday, and it was funny because when I asked questions like, what is your revenue, what is your expenses, how much are you keeping, how much, what percentage, are you paying your team, etc. Most people don't know those answers, and it's because we're afraid to look at our numbers. And as long as and also we grew up, all of us grew up thinking that if you spoke about money, it was a taboo, right? We end up not speaking about money. Then you go into business, and all of a sudden you have to look at it every day, talk about it, ask for it, send invoices out, negotiate around it, go through objections, all kinds of stuff around money. And I think that's piece number one, is that you have
Yeah.
to shift your relationship with it so that you can release the fears that
Yeah.
you have around the money, whether you
Yeah.
realize you have them or not, and really start to look at, how do I fall in love with it? How do I not feel,
Yeah.
how do I stop avoiding it, etc.
Yeah. I had this experience. I have a great mentor. And when I was growing my business, probably I don't know, I was probably like 8 years in, maybe 9 years in, found this really amazing mentor. And I had just come from my CPA, and I literally was from that meeting, went to his meeting. And he asked me a question about my numbers, and I didn't know the answer. So I was like, "Oh, I have my P&L right here. I'll just look." So I take my P&L out, and I start looking for the answer, right, and to give him the answer. He goes, "Oh, are those your P&Ls?" And I go, yes. And he, without even knowing it, he took them out of my hand and he like starts skimming them. And I was like, oh, I am so naked right now. And I'm like, oh, like I was just like this, all this like flood of emotion just came over me. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And of course he didn't have, really bad things to say, but it was just like that emotion that we have connected to our numbers,
Yeah.
right? And it was like, oh, okay. Oh, okay, we can have this conversation. And the greatest gift that came out of that conversation was like, oh, okay, I'm really not naked and I really didn't die from this experience. And we can actually have an open conversation about this. And he was the only person
Yeah.
that I felt comfortable for the longest time until I started talking to my CPA and other people. Now I talk about money all over the place, but it took some time to like get comfortable with having that conversation because it is like something that we like. I think we get our identity and whether we're quote successful or not successful, whether we're good or bad, or whether we're doing, you know what I'm saying, that all gets tied up in that money conversation.
It is. It's tied up in what's in your bank account or what's not in your bank account. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's not even the same. Like, I have colleagues that have millions of dollars in their bank account, but they're carrying shame around, carrying that much money. I
Yeah.
mean, it is like there's so many variations
Mm-hmm.
of money stuff that if you don't look at it and look at it consistently, it can get the best of you and you don't even realize it's doing it. Like, you think, oh, I'm not sending my invoice out because I'm procrastinating. And really, you're not sending your invoice out because you're afraid. You're afraid that
Yeah.
if they look at that number, they're going to think a certain thing about you. And until you
Mm-hmm.
get to the root of that belief, it will always be a struggle to send your invoices out. And that could be for any number of actions. I
Yeah.
think it's actually one of the reasons I have an event. It's called the Master Your Money event. It's in May, and I've been doing it for 10 years. And it's exactly for what you're talking about, which is that for most entrepreneurs, there's not a safe space to talk about money, to really openly say, this is my revenue, these were my expenses, this is my fear around money, this is how much I wish I could make, this is what I want to do with it. And it's, why I created this 3-day experience where people can come in and collectively speak about money, right, in a safe space, because it's just not out there.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Okay, so that's the first step is a
Yeah.
relationship around money. Okay, I want to dig into a couple more of these.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would be the second step?
So the second step is focus on revenue generating activities. So
Yeah.
the number one revenue generating activity is selling. It's having a sales conversation, one to one or one to many. It's making an offer. And a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we are doing everything except making offers, right? You're spending time updating your website, making your folders look pretty, doing funnels, making videos, like you're doing all kinds of stuff, spending exorbitant amounts of time, right? Writing newsletters. And I'm not saying any of those things are bad. They're not.
Right.
They really fit into the appropriate marketing plan. But if there is no time in your week in which you are asking for money or doing activities that generate offers, right? Then you're going to find that your business slowly tanks or
Yeah.
quickly tanks.
Yeah.
And that money's always going to be a problem. So the revenue generating activities are the activities that generate sales conversations.
Yeah.
When I teach
It's
them in
what's
my
filling
business
the, it's
program.
what's filling your funnel. It's what's keeping your pipeline active and alive. And I think
Yeah,
sometimes it's a balancing act, right? You got to go generate that. I love speaking. And so that's one of the ways in which I can fill a funnel really fast, right? And
yeah,
so, but then the follow up and those sales conversations have to happen immediately afterwards. And so it's this constant like filling the funnel and, taking care of the funnel, right?
exactly,
You know,
exactly. And for so many entrepreneurs, there's we get so caught up in like admin and logistics, and we get very caught up in let me spend my 8 hours doing something instead of being very, very clear that you can spend 10, 12 hours a day working and still not make any money.
yeah.
It's not like a salary. And I think we do get into a salary mentality of like, I have my to-do list, let me check everything off, and it
Mhm.
doesn't matter the priority. So it's really about focusing on revenue generating activities. And then we move into step number three. And step number three is tracking and looking at your numbers.
Yeah.
So tracking your numbers being the most important piece, right? So
Yeah.
looking at how much revenue am I bringing in? What are the expenses? What marketing activities are working? What marketing activities are not working? The reason I tell people to track their numbers is fundamentally it will help you to work less, because a
Agreed.
lot of times I see entrepreneurs, one of the first things I do with my clients when they come in is simplify. Because I'm a firm believer that you don't need to be waking up at 5 a.m. and you definitely don't need to be working past 6 p.m. And if you are, chances are you're focusing on the wrong things. And so when you're tracking, you're able to see what's working and not working. You've hit the numbers that you need to hit in your business, so that when your mom calls at 3 o'clock on Friday, which moms always tend to do because they don't think you're working, and she's like, "Hey, let's go to lunch," and you're like, "No, I can't." You can actually be like, "Yeah, I can, because I hit my numbers this week, and I don't need to do all this other admin stuff because that can wait till next week, because
Yes.
the health of the business is okay, because I know how to track the health of the business, right? I
Yeah.
know my
Yeah.
important elements that need to get done to make sure we are moving forward and that there's money coming in the bank."
Love that. Okay, so let's go to the fourth and fifth because I want to make sure that the listeners get all of these.
Yeah,
So
totally.
what's number four?
Number four is creating a dynamic plan. I call
I
it a
love that.
dynamic breakthrough plan. So here's the thing. Most people make plans in January, and then they either get lost on your hard drive, or they become really pretty wall art, right? That you have up but you don't really look at.
Yeah.
The thing is a plan is a projection that is meant to be changed. A plan is a
Yeah.
projection that is meant to be changed. When I worked at L'Oreal, there was a planning and finance department, and their entire job was to change everybody's plans every week, to update the plans based on current real events that were going on both in society and with the numbers. And I find that small business owners somehow didn't get that message. So we make our plans, and then the moment the plans don't work out, we trash them, or we trash
Yeah.
ourselves, or
Right.
both.
Yes.
And so, therefore, by the time we get to April or May, we're kind of like just coasting, not coasting in a bad way, but like coasting without a plan, like throwing things up, deciding, oh, we need an extra $10,000 here or $5,000 there. Let me do this. Let me do that. And then we're exhausted. We don't have appropriate space and time for relaxation because there's no plan in place. We get to the end of the year and sometimes we hit our goals, sometimes we don't, but it always feels like we're running, and most
Yeah.
of the time running on empty. What
Yeah.
the reason I call it a dynamic breakthrough plan is that it is dynamic. It changes. You plan daily, you plan weekly, you plan monthly, you plan quarterly. One of the first things that we do in my programs is literally every 90 days we figure out what are our 90-day goals. How does this shift from what you had originally planned that these 90-day goals were going to be? What are you focused on working on? I believe that planning is the highest form of self-care.
Yeah.
And that the reason why you want to plan is to give yourself time off. It is almost impossible to have space in your calendar daily, weekly, and to take trips and vacations without a plan. So I again have worked with some high level entrepreneurs that come to me after 15, 20 years in business, and they've never taken a real vacation. It's because they've never planned it. And that makes it makes the biggest difference. It turns your business from a highly paid job, essentially, right,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
something that you love, that is joyful, that is aligning with your schedule and what you want to create.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, fifth step here.
And the fifth step, because I know we're getting to time here,
Yes.
is rinse and repeat. So
And
the
I love
fifth
it.
step is quite simple. It is attain mastery and excellence by focusing on the things that are working for you. Um, and this step I actually added after, I even wrote my book about this, which is, and the reason I added it is because I meet so many entrepreneurs who do something once, it doesn't work, they throw it out, they try a new thing, and this could even work for businesses, right? Just like the woman that you spoke about who stood up. I always laugh because I can't tell you how many networking events I go to where people are like, I'm a yoga teacher and I run a jewelry business and I run a makeup business and I'll send you skincare and here's some supplements you could buy. And it's like they think that they're giving you a variety of options, but what they're
Yeah.
really saying is, I'm confused.
Yeah,
And
and
I
then a
haven't,
confused mind doesn't buy. So then
yeah,
they're
yeah,
confusing us as a consumer. It's like we're like, and we want to run away. We want to absolutely run away.
yeah. And I
So it's
find
a
this
it's a
most
repelling,
true.
it's a type of repelling marketing strategy. So if you're
Absolutely.
listening to this, I love you and stop doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And I think it's, in that rinse and repeat step, there's a whole teaching there around being okay with disappointment
Yeah.
because I think a lot of folks do something for the first time and they experience disappointment. And then because they experience disappointment, they run to either another marketing strategy or another
Yeah.
program or even another business. And it's like, no, right,
You know,
hold
I
on.
I
Yeah.
will I will personally share this. I am going through this very moment in time, okay, with this exact same thing. And at first, I had some expectations, and it didn't go accordingly to plan because that's how it
How it
always
goes.
works, right?
Yeah.
That's how it goes. And so I was really frustrated, and I brought my team back, and I was like, okay. And so I said, you know what? I know that this is going to work. We just have not, we need to tweak it, right? And so I had to come back and do my own work on myself because I was like, I had to give myself some days and to like
Yeah.
figure this out. But I told him, I was like, okay, we got to revamp this. And now there's such clarity that is coming, and the team is realizing, okay, this is the piece that we're missing, and this is the piece that we're missing. So we're literally in the process right now to tweak those two pieces to go back to the whole, right? And I think, it is just I patience is what I'm here to learn in this lifetime. I am certain of it. And so if anyone is listening to this, just know and trust that you're absolutely right. You will lose more time throwing it out and restarting and throwing it out and restarting versus just saying, okay, I know this is going to work. Find the evidence that it works for someone, and then say, okay, we just need to tweak it until we get it right, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, really, your whole experience that you described is about holding disappointment,
Yeah.
moving through it, and then coming back to the drawing board. And
Yeah.
I actually think it's one of the most I teach about disappointment in all of my programs because I think it's one of the most underspoken subjects. It's like if you are going to be successful in business, it's not even about failure, because I feel like failure everybody makes look sexy these days. It's
Yeah.
actually being able to hold the pain, the
Yeah.
physical pain of disappointment, because
Yeah.
you will go through it. Like
Yeah.
it is table stakes for being an entrepreneur, is understanding that it's either going to work or not.
Yeah.
50% of the time it'll work, 50% it won't work. So 50% of the time when you're trying anything new, it will hurt afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think this,
I think that's just so important, because I, as you know, as someone who has been, I've been a seven-figure company since 2013, right? And I have experienced as much or more disappointment as anyone else. The only difference now is that I'm not afraid of the pain anymore. Right?
yeah.
I'm just not. I know I'm either going to be in celebration of achieving something, or I'm going to be in pain of not having hit our goals, one or the other.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to keep moving forward. And I think that's really encompassed in that rinse and repeat step, is to attain excellence and mastery. You have to, your goal in life isn't about being happy or making it work all the time. Your goal in
Yeah.
life and in your business is about feeling alive. And if you're going to
Yeah.
feel alive, you're going to feel 100% of the emotions, which is
Yes.
sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. This is so juicy. I would, we need to have you come back on, and we will specifically talk about disappointment, because I think this is a topic that
Yes.
we don't talk about,
Yeah. I know.
and it's one of these things that, I think oftentimes we, you know, because it's not being talked about, we think that there's something wrong with us.
Yes.
And it's like, no, there's absolutely nothing wrong with us. We're going to feel everything, and it's okay to. And how do we work that muscle to, what is that word? Like to handle it better.
Yeah.
Just last week, I had this situation that was like one of those blindsided things that came out of nowhere. And I'm like, okay. And you know what's interesting is, like, I always tell people, like, if this would have happened to me 20 years ago, I would have been
Yeah.
devastated. I would have been
Yeah.
laying on that, the subway floor sobbing, right? And and it's like, I'm not even worried about. I didn't lose sleep over it. I'm just like, it's going to work out. It's going to work out. It's being shown to us for this reason. But I think when you talk about what you just said, it's like my ability to hold disappointment, my ability to hold difficult stuff has evolved over these,
Yeah.
20, 25 years of entrepreneurship, to where it's like, okay, yay for us, we get to go
Yeah.
through something new, and let me get my attorney on the phone, right? And so,
Totally.
but it's like, it works that muscle to where it's like, you know what, the worst case scenario is something we can handle, we'll figure it out, right? And
Yeah.
so it is what it is, and we'll get through it. And so I'd rather, and I told the person that's involved in this, I said, let's like delay the anxiety. We don't know what the outcome is going to be, and I'm going to invite you to, and I do a lot of energy work, so I was like, I'm going to have you do these three things so that we can hold the space to create a really amazing outcome for this, and so I think it's that ability for us to bounce back, and how do we bounce back faster and not go as deep, right? And so
Totally.
it's all about the personal work that we get to do on ourselves. So, oh my gosh, Monica, this time has flown. I could talk to you forever. Where can people reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, a couple of different ways. First of all, after after interviews like this, people always ask about what are the revenue generating activities that I could be doing to grow my business, especially if you caught yourself thinking, I'm not making enough offers, or I'm focusing too much on admin work. So if that is you, I want to invite you in to get our marketing calendar. You can get it at marketingcalendarnow.com, www.marketingcalendarnow.com. That would be the first step I would suggest that you do, because that has the 9 main revenue generating activities on it, and it has the order and frequency in which you should do them in. So it'll really open up your eyes to what you're doing and what you're not doing. So I'd invite you in to get that. And then the next piece that I would love to have you join us for, or is if this whole conversation about money really resonated with you and you're realizing, well, maybe I need to go a little deeper here, we have an event coming up May 18th through 20th. It's virtual. And you can check that out at masteryourmoneyevent.com, masteryourmoneyevent.com. And I also just want to offer those of you that are watching the podcast or listening to it, tickets are normally $4.95, but if you use the code SAVE300, you can get your tickets for $195. It's my gift to you. And as a thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monica. It has been a delight. I thank you for really transforming the way that we do life and business. So so appreciate you, and we'll have you back on, I'm sure. So thank you, and have a wonderful week.
Thanks.
I am so grateful that you joined me for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, then there's just one thing that I would like you to do. Click to subscribe and leave me a rating and review. As my way to thank you, let's connect for a free consultation. Just reach out to me at talkingwithteri, that's TERI.com, to book your time.